And I find that like I have lots of mentors, incredible individuals. I just send them a message.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't. And if they don't, that's okay.
That's really important what you just said. If they don't, that's okay. So many people tend to take it so personally. If a person doesn't respond or whatever, it's okay. You know, the whole point is, were you reaching out just so they would respond, or were you reaching out because that's what you wanted to do? Today, I am really happy that I've got a friend and I've got a guest with me today. And this is Rick Guerrero. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here with me. Rick and I have known each other for about 8 or 9 years. And there is one thing that we both had in common from day one when we met in Atlanta. I was there speaking at a brokerage. And what we noticed is we both love to innovate. And the reason we love to innovate is, I know for myself, going against the grain and trying something new and trying to reach people in a different way than what the traditional way is, I always have this idea that I think it just makes more of an impact when you can sort of stand out from the crowd and say, well, you know, I thought a little more about you, and I think it may reach you better than what's normally been done. And I know even in my teaching career, I always did that. You know, was how can I make this class more interesting? Like, how can I get rid of those glassy eyes from just staring at me to like, oh, well, this is interesting. Rick, what about you? What is it that you think that drives you to be an innovator in business? Like, where do you think that came from?
Well, you know, looking back, I got to go back to my childhood and my days in high school and college. So, you know, when younger, we all want to fit in, right? In school, we all want to fit in and be like everybody else. And I remember trying to fit in, trying to be like the cool people. And then in college, I recognized that something clicked to where just be you. Just be you and unique, and don't try to fit in. And I don't know what it was that clicked or what it was that made it happen. Maybe it was because as a poor college student, I had no money and I just had to find ways to get food. So I would attend like the African American Accounting Association event because they had pizza, or I'd attend the Asian Association Marketing Club because they had chicken nuggets. I started to attend everything and like learning from different people and realizing that like everyone is unique in their own way. And I'm not gonna try to fit anymore. I'm just gonna be myself and be unique. Nothing's like we're being unique isn't bad. It's being you.
Yeah.
And not everyone's going to connect with that, and that's okay. But the ones that do, you're going to go further because you're going to connect with people that are like-minded, like you, like you and I, right? Like we're wired different.
Yeah. And you know, that's interesting because you are an immigrant, right, to the United States. Or you were born there, but your parents are.
Here. Yeah.
Same thing with me. Both my parents were immigrants to Canada. And I know I grew up in a nice neighborhood, but with a foreign last name. When my father answered the phone, it always sounded like he was an angry Greek, and it was just the way he answered. But the thing for me is growing up like that, right? So it was, I was baptized Catholic and Greek Orthodox. So we were celebrating the Catholic Easter and the Orthodox Easter. And there was always these two things. And from a young age, I was standing out because, you know, people would see my father didn't answer the phone the way they did. My parents were more strict than theirs were, you know, than let's say an average Canadian household. So nobody could pronounce my last name, which my maiden name is Theodosio. But when you see it written, it's very intimidating. So I know from even a young age, you actually have to decide at that point, you know, is this going to hold me back because I'm not really fitting in to what everyone in this neighborhood and everyone at this school looks like, sounds like, their name is like? Or is it okay for me to be different? And I remember in primary school, it was always about, I wish I could just fit in. And I used to tell my dad, like, do you have to sound always angry on the phone? Like, I'm not angry. And I'm like, but you just sound angry right now. And he just said, that's just how I am. And then when I got to high school, I realized that it's okay if I'm different. Like I actually enjoyed standing out a little bit more. And then when I moved to Europe and then I was by myself and I had no influences around me, that's when you begin to realize, okay, so who do I want to be? And how do I want to be? And that's when I finally got to know who I was, because I wanted to keep leveling up. I wanted to keep trying things in class. And I remember standing in front of my first class and these kids, like it was just these blank stares staring at me. And I just stopped the class and I was only 23. And I said, well, what do you want to learn? And they're like, what? You're actually asking us? And I said, yeah, we need to cover this. But what interests you? And they said, well, we like this, we like that. And I said, okay, well, what if we look at it like that? And then I started realizing if I could bring it to you in the way you see the world, maybe you would grab onto it better. And I think that that is the sign of an innovator, is not needing to fit in and being okay with that. And then how can I make this better for you? How can I make this experience better for you? Not because I need it to be better, because I think it would be better for you.
Yeah. So to echo something you said, and we're both coaches, we're both leaders, we both, coach and help people. But something like your example of the school, I think is a fantastic example about being an innovator and being a strong leader. So many people try to coach you at like a particular stage, right? They want to coach you at the stage that they think you're at or that they're at. And the challenge is we're all at different parts of our journey. We're all at different stages. So, I applaud you. I try to do the same thing to understand the individual that I'm trying to help. Where are they at in the stage? Because you and I let's say I'm helping you, which, it's something. Well, your level and your journey is going to be very different than someone that's new to the industry and just starting out. And too many times, people come in a situation where their leader or the person that's teaching them is teaching them from one particular part of the journey, and they're not quite there yet.
Yes. And this actually trickles down into business, because as you coach people and I have coached salespeople, what I've noticed is some of the mistakes and errors that I see them making, and they wonder why things aren't going the way they want them to, or they wonder why the deal isn't going through, or why their client is all of a sudden angry with them. What they don't realize is everything that's motivating them is what they want. But I want them to
100%.
call me back now, right? I want them to answer my email. I want this deal done tonight. Well, it's not about you. And if I could just put that on a billboard, it's not about you, it's about them. And when you understand how they feel, that's when the business starts to turn around. Have you noticed that?
Oh, 100%. And I think that we have to retrain ourselves that we're not the hero in the story. Our goal as in our business, or even as leaders or coaches or as realtors or loan officers, we need to be a guide. We need to make our client the hero and showcase them as the hero and guide them. Stop trying to be the hero. Stop trying to be the person that is a Superman or Superwoman.
Yeah,
that's them. Help them get to where they want to go. Learn where they want to go. Because like you said, a lot of times we're putting them where we think they want to go. I remember Tony Robbins speaking years back. He said that he was looking to buy a mansion or a house in Florida. And he worked with like 10 different realtors because nobody listened to what he wanted. They kept trying to show him what they thought he wanted.
right. And it's interesting that you bring that up, the want and the need thing. Something that I learned as I evolved in business is people will tell you what they want, right? But sometimes you also know what they need if you listen carefully enough. And I think that this is also being an innovator in business, because if you listen carefully, and so let me give an example about real estate. And this is how I teach real estate agents. So you meet someone for the first time and they say, I'm looking for a house in this area. I'm looking for a 4-bedroom home, 2-story, nice backyard, and so on. Most agents will just take that information down, not ask any more questions, and start sending listings. The problem with that, right, is what are the parameters? So I start giving what if questions. So that's where I go that next step. What if the basement isn't finished? Would that be okay for you? Actually, yeah, I think it would. If the price was right, would you accept that? Yes. Perfect. What is your boundary? Where are you not willing to go? And when I can get boundaries from people, then my search becomes bigger, right? But if you don't go to this next step, and I think that being an innovator is always going the next step further than anyone else is willing to go.
Yeah,
Tell me about your experience in that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so I learned from a young age, ask lots of questions.
Yeah.
So if you're sick and you go to the doctor, they're taking your blood pressure, they're, doing all these things. Or no, I'm coming in because my back hurts. I don't need my blood pressure. But they go through the procedures and they ask all these questions. So I approach it the same way. I'm not a realtor, but in that example, I would be like, tell me more. Like, why do you want a big backyard? Well, we have a dog and we have young kids that want to play. Oh, that's awesome. Would you want to look at a neighborhood that has a playground? Or, I would ask lots of questions because I feel the more questions and the more knowledge I know of that situation, the better prepared I am to serve and overcome any hurdles that may present themselves as we go through the process.
I've got a really interesting story. And this person reached out to me and she said, I'm not in real estate. I actually have taco carts in California by the beach.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, well, that's really interesting. She's like, I know you know a lot about business. I know you coach business people. I would love if you would just, I'm just struggling. Like, I think I want to close the whole thing down. And I said, okay, sure. So what's interesting is as a coach, I'm not here to judge you or give you advice as to whether you should or shouldn't close something down. But what I did is I just simply started asking questions. What brought you to this point of wanting to close down? Like, let's back it up. Reverse engineer everything. So tell me from the beginning, why did you start the business? Oh, I thought it would be fun and it's a great area and this and that. I said, perfect. And so keep going, right? And so it's tell me the whole story. And then somewhere along the story, something happened that started to change the way you looked at things. And in the end, in a 1-hour phone call, what we realized and what I was able to get from all my questions was she just had the wrong people working at the carts who were not motivated, who were not energetic and enthusiastic. Therefore, they weren't attracting the people who were walking along the boardwalk or the pier or whatever. And I said, I think it's simply a matter of changing out people. And I said, you got to look at your product and how it sells in each location because each location will always be different. But what's interesting is 1 month later, she messaged me and she said, you saved me $800. I changed out everyone. I created this new system now where I train everyone on the way they need to greet people, how you can talk to them. And she's like, and I love the business again. And this is what people don't realize is that if you can have someone there for you who is completely unbiased to your situation and will just walk you down the path of your mindset and what's going on. Because normally when we just want to throw the towel in, it's because something has shifted and we need to figure out what that is.
So there's a motto, I have several mottos I live by, and one of them is be curious, not judgmental, be curious. And in that example, you were curious, you asked questions, and I believe you saved her probably more than $800. You probably saved her dream. And that has no dollar amount on it because someone's dream is it's huge.
Well, I mean, in her eyes, it was that $800 for that month, which we know would compound because then the business would again kickstart and start to grow again. So let's talk about that for a minute. So when did you realize that by doing innovative things in your business and in your life, you started to see this trajectory starting to shift a little bit? And you're like, oh, hang on a second. Not everyone's doing this, but if I do this, look at what's happening.
So I've never thought of myself as the smartest, the best at anything, great at anything. But I always wanted to separate myself somehow or some way. So I've worked in 3 different industries. I've worked in retail, I've worked in insurance, and now I've worked in mortgage. And in each industry, I always watched others and thought to myself, like, that person's doing an amazing job. What can I do better? What can I do different? So I would try to replicate them, but then do something unique or different to set myself up um, to have more success or to continue to grow. Right. And I think what happens for many is they get to the top of the mountain, they get to, to achieve their goals and dreams, but then they're too afraid to take the risk and try something because it's hard to get there. You stumble back down, it's hard to get back up there. So for me, even to this day, like, I don't stop learning. I don't stop embracing others. I had coffee last week with the owner of another mortgage company because why not? Why would I not want to pick the brain of someone extremely
Right.
successful in a very tough industry, right? I'm reaching out to my peers saying, hey, who do you know that's killing it in this industry that I could pick their brain? Whereas, and you know how it is in our industry, a lot of times a realtor doesn't want to talk to you because they work at XYZ company and they don't want you to recruit them.
Yeah.
That's one way to look at it. I don't try to recruit me. Maybe I should get recruited. I don't know. But my goal is I want to get better. So I approach everything with an open mind. I approach everything with, let me hear what they have to say. There could be some nugget there that will help me improve. So I reached out to this one leader at one of the largest national mortgage companies in the country. And he did try to recruit me, which is fine because I got to hear his pitch and it was remarkable. I
Yes.
took so many notes on him trying to recruit me, and then I use that now as part of my presentation. So you can't be afraid of you can't operate in fear. You gotta have an open mind. You got to have an abundant mind. You have to have a curious mind, and you have to be humble. And the humbleness for me comes from years of martial arts, getting my butt kicked. Is that, I've learned that no matter what, there's someone always out there that's going to kick my butt and better than me. So as good as I get, there's always somebody better.
Right.
And I apply that to everything in my life. There's always somebody better. I have probably 6 coaches that are in different parts of my life that coach me and advise me. That's another thing I'm a big advocate of, is have a coach. And if you can't afford a coach, find a mentor.
Yeah.
Right. Katharine, I reached out. We met 9 years ago. We haven't talked since. We're having this podcast because I re-engaged you and sent you a message on one of the social media platforms.
Yeah.
And we just started talking again, right? How hard was that? It didn't cost me a penny.
Exactly.
All I had to do was send you a message.
Yeah.
And I find that, like, I have lots of mentors, incredible individuals. I just send them a message.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't. And if they don't, that's okay.
That's really important what you just said. If they don't, that's okay. So many people tend to take it so personally. If a person doesn't respond or whatever, it's okay. The whole point is, were you reaching out just so they would respond, or were you reaching out because that's what you wanted to do? And this is what my philosophy has been for the last many, many years now in business. Someone will say to me, well, why did you do that? I mean, it's not like they're going to repay you back. And I said, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I was motivated to do it. And I'm not looking to see whether or not they're choosing to pay me back or help me back or anything. I just did it because I want to. And if I'm doing it for that reason, then I don't feel bad. I'm not disappointed because I didn't have a specific expectation. And I think that expectation is what disappoints people.
Well, and that's a hard mindset to get to. I struggled with that as well. Like, I do something. Let's say that you're obviously I'm a mortgage loan officer, manager. Let's say that you're somebody I met. You're a loan officer. I've been trying to recruit you, and I met you. We talked, we networked, and then I see on social media you made a move to another company. I would be hurt. Like, how come she didn't give me a call? But over the years, I realized, like, how come she didn't give me a call? I spent so much time helping her, giving her advice. And then I learned that, like, you don't know me anything. I'm not giving advice expecting anything in return. I'm giving advice I want to help. And if you're doing it because you expect something in return, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Change your perspective.
Right. And I noticed that even when people don't get deals, right? Or they say, oh, but I went and presented to this person. And do you know that they went and hired someone else? So I lost the deal. And I always remind them, you didn't lose anything because you never had it to begin with. What you need to take from that is that you just weren't impressive enough. There's something lacking in your skills that you weren't able to get that deal. So rather than taking it personally like a victim, why don't you go back and figure out what that gap was? Call the person up who you did not get the deal from and say, thank you for the opportunity to even allow me to present to you. Would you mind letting me know where I fell short? That's how you're going to learn to get better. Put your ego aside and just say, just let me know. How can I improve?
It's 100% right. I tell myself, if I don't close the deal, if I don't get the business, if I don't get the recruit, it's nothing personal. I did not show enough value. If I show value, and if I show enough value, if I feel I showed enough value, I feel I walked out of the park and they decided to go a different direction. They just felt that the direction they wanted to go was better value for them. Everyone has different situations.
Yeah.
And what may be a fit for me may not be a fit for you, right? So I've now learned, like, I also don't want to work with everybody. I want to work with people that recognize my value and that are a good fit with me.
Yeah.
Like we have like only a limited amount of time on earth, and we do this for a living, but like, what do we really enjoy doing? I enjoy my family, traveling. So if I'm going to spend time with work, I want to work with people I enjoy working with.
Yeah.
I want to work with people that like, we're a team. We're all in it together to reach a goal.
So true. So while we're on this sort of subject line, tell me then, as someone who has always endeavored to be innovative, what do you do when it comes to social media where there's so much noise, right? How do you distinguish yourself on social media?
So that's a very good question, because, I've been active on social media for years, right? And I feel that I've gotten pretty good at my social media presence now, but I also feel like there's always room to improve.
Mm-hmm.
So today, what I do, and I encourage everyone that's listening to this to follow me on Instagram, is where I'm most active nowadays, Instagram. You can put my handle in the comments. But my goal is to share, is to be kind, caring. What's the word I'm looking for? I want to make people happy. Everyone is going through tough times. Everyone has a situation they're going through. So I try to be very kind and complimentary. That's what I'm looking for. I try to be very kind and complimentary on stories and reels. I compliment everybody. Like, we have so many haters in the world and so much negativity going on. I want to be the person, if I could bring one smile to one person's face, that'd be my day.
Right.
It's funny. So like I said, I do martial arts, and it's just a great example. There's these younger people in my gym that haven't been doing it as long as I have. And we have these ladies that are incredible. Like, these ladies are beating up men. And I'll tell them, like, I'll comment like, girl, you're crushing it. You're doing amazing. And they'll say, Rick, like, this means so much coming from you. Like, you're one of the mentors or leaders or heroes in the gym. I'm like, that's very kind of you to say. You're the inspiration, because you're coming in here, you're doing it, you're leading by example.
Right.
Like, stop comparing yourself.
Yeah.
Focus on you.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing in you is you're amazing and remarkable, and you need to know that you are. Don't compare yourself to me. Don't compare yourself to somebody else doing it for a long time, because we all come from different journeys.
It's so true. And so often when everyone is comparing themselves to the next person on social media, they have no idea for how many years they've been working at it, right? You may not have even noticed they were on social media the last 7 years, but they've been there posting every day, hoping that someone would engage with them or whatnot. So because you see where they are now, doesn't mean, it's like that iceberg, right? And then there's all that ice underneath the water that you don't see, or a plant with roots. It took ages for that plant. We have this garden that we keep expanding year over year over year. And what's interesting, and I had never really thought about this before until I realized that there are some vegetables that will not grow till their 4th year. And I was like, what? Yep. So, for example, an eggplant, I think an eggplant takes up to 2 years to actually germinate in the ground before it will even produce its first flower. So, imagine
Wow.
you're sitting there waiting 4 years for this one vegetable you were hoping to have 4 years ago. Most people would say, forget it. I don't want it. But the beauty of those vegetables is once they come up once, they will now come up every year after that, and you never have to replant. But you have to wait 4 years.
That's such a great example. As you're telling the story, so I'm in the middle of writing a book, like a playbook to help salespeople. And as you tell that story, it just sparked something that I wrote last night because that example, let's correlate it to salespeople, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're not going to get that sale that first attempt. That vegetable's not going to grow the first year. So here's some stats I want to share with you that I put in my book last night.
Yes.
48% of salespeople, 48%, almost half, never follow up with a prospect.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
25% make a second contact and stop. 12% make 3 contacts and stop. Okay. 2%, just 2% of all sales are made on the first contact. 3% are made on the second contact. 5% are made on the third contact. 10% are made on the fourth contact. 80% of sales are made on the 5th contact.
Yeah.
The 5th contact.
Yeah.
But we stopped early because we don't get what we want that first 2 or 3 calls. We're so focused on us
Yes.
instead of being focused on them.
Right. Because just because you were ready for them to be ready doesn't mean they're ready yet.
Yep.
And I have noted, and I think that the longer you are in an industry, that's when you really begin to understand how this all works. You know, after 16 years in real estate, what I've noticed is I've had people pop up out of my database, 10 years receiving emails from me, never responded to an email, never responded to a monthly. I've been doing monthly market updates for 15 years by email. And this one lady popped up and said, hi, would you be able to come to my house on Wednesday? I was like, and then when I could not figure out where she came from because, you know, back 15 years, I guess I wasn't making very good notes. So when I arrived at her house, she said, do you know, I came to one of your first open houses 15 years ago. You put me in your system and I've been receiving emails for this long. Had I been in a hurry, I would have pushed her away. Had I been constantly bombarding her with, are you ready now? Are you ready now? But because I just slowly dripped for 15 years, just showed value, you know, this is the market, here's where we are, she managed to come back. So it is really important.
You guided her.
Yeah. And some people will take longer than others. This is life. And you know,
We're people, we're human.
No different than planting a garden. There will be plants that will turn around like beans and they will start shooting immediately. Within a week, you've already got a shoot. Then there are plants that will take 4 years and you can go and you can unplant them because you've lost patience or you can hang on.
So the plant you said takes 4 years to grow. What vegetable is that?
I think it was eggplant.
Okay, eggplant.
Something
So
like
let's
that.
say
But fruit trees are identical. I have a pear tree we planted 6 years ago, and it's only a foot bigger than when I planted it 6 years ago, and still no fruit.
So I love how you brought the garden up because I look at salespeople as many salespeople look at themselves as hunters. They're hunting for business, right? And I say that's the wrong perspective. You need to be a gardener. So when you plant that seed for the eggplant, let's say you plant it today, what does your 4 years look like? You come back in 4 years and water it and then wait and then pick the fruit, or what happens over those 4 years?
Well,
you cultivate
it. Well, not only that, right? You're cultivating, you're fertilizing, you're protecting it over the winter where we get 3 feet of snow. So I actually have to put things on the ground to protect it. So this is what's interesting is if you were to just look at life and what you have to do in life, I mean, it's like your child. You have a child who's 1. Is that child useless because it doesn't talk yet? Right? You are going to cultivate it. You're going to help them grow. And year over year over year, you know, this is where you're teaching them and you're values and discipline. Here's an interesting story, and it actually has to do with my kids. So I had both my boys in a Mediterranean country, a small island. And even though I'm half Greek, everyone considered me a foreigner, right? Everyone said I did things differently, which I did. But one thing I knew for sure is I knew how to teach children. I knew how to teach discipline while still being nice. I knew how to cultivate their talents, but also helping them grow in other ways. So when all the other Greek children were going home and they were doing whatever they were doing, I gave my children timetables when they went home. So there was actually a poster on the wall that said, when you come home, you're going to have a snack, and then you're going to do your homework. And when your homework is done, then you can have, I don't know if you remember Game Boy, but you can play Game Boy for 30 minutes. Then you can watch your show. Because what I understood about people and kids is everyone needs boundaries. They need a schedule of some kind. Otherwise, they get lost. And if I could give that schedule to my kids from a young age, later on, life would be much easier. And I cannot tell you the number of parents, Greek parents, who would call me out and say, you are too strict. You don't let them do what they do. And I said, but they're still playing their games. They're very happy kids. So then we fast forward to today, and one of my boys has his own digital media marketing company and does all kinds of things, produces movies and whatever at 26 years old. And the other one is studying astrophysics and has, never sweats. He just finished his exam period. And, I said, how did you do? He's like, I don't know. I think I got a 90 or something. But what happened was I helped cultivate their habits so that when they became a teenager, I didn't have to sweat anymore because it had all been cultivated over those years.
Well, I think you also did a remarkable job, aligns with it. You did a remarkable job of including them in your business. I remember 9 years ago, I asked you wow, your video editing is remarkable. Where do you edit your videos? And you're like, I don't do it. My son does it for me. So I remember you getting them involved.
Yeah.
And I think that's so brilliant to get your kids, because we're entrepreneurs, right? Essentially, it's brilliant to get your kids involved in what you do day to day. It's only going to allow them the exposure sooner than later. Too many times, so many parents call their children and keep them in, and they're not exposed to the real world. They're not exposed to obstacles. They're not exposed to challenges and objections. Yeah. And what you've done has clearly helped them take their path to success.
Well, and I think, I don't know about you, but I grew up with, immigrant parents who kept everything between themselves, right? We didn't know what was going on about finances. We didn't know about really their work. We didn't know about much. We were kids, right? And the parents don't talk about those things with their kids. Whereas I decided that I thought it was a good idea to share what's going on in the world, good things and bad things about business, what it's like to communicate with people, what happens when communication breaks down with a client. And I've noticed that has helped them because we can, sit around the dinner table and we can talk. My son will say, oh, well, I had a really difficult client today. She didn't want to take any of my design advice and whatnot. And I said, well, at this point, you have two options, right? You can continue to work with that person, or as an entrepreneur, you can choose to not work with that person. I said, that's the beauty about business is you can decide where you want to go. And he's like, oh, so I don't have to work with them? I said, no. But I said, the problem is that when people are in business and they don't have enough business, they feel so desperate for business that they will end up working with everyone and anyone. And that is what creates them to leave the business because they didn't set it up the right way.
Yeah, man, you dropped a lot of great nuggets there. I want to go back to when you're talking about your family growing up and the lack of financial conversation, because it's true. I come from a Hispanic family. I had no idea my parents' financials. I had no idea about what a savings, or I knew a little about savings. They told me to save my money. But I
Yeah.
didn't know about a 401k or building wealth. Like I didn't know anything about wealth. I just knew there were rich people, and then like
And
we
I
were
knew
doing
that
okay.
money didn't grow on trees, right?
Right. So I'm going to plug one of the organizations I volunteer with, NAREP, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, which actually you're at EXP. The president of EXP is Leo Pareja,
Yep.
who used to be the national president of NAREP. Amazing guy.
Yep.
But NAREP came out with this thing called the Hispanic Wealth Project, and they came up with the NAREP 10 disciplines. And the thought was, within our community and many minority communities, we don't have the education of how to build wealth. So here are 10 disciplines that we're teaching to help you build wealth. And these disciplines to you and I are probably common sense now because of the industry we're in, having a mature understanding of wealth and prosperity, minimizing debt, living below your means, just some of these disciplines that we educate the community on. And we've had a lot of success in doing so and helped a ton of people. But it's like to your point, we didn't have that. We learned the hard way.
Yeah.
And now, like in innovation, there's so much resources out there in today's world where you can improve yourself. Like you can get a degree now through websites.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there. I've taught myself, and I'm sure you have as well. You wrote a book, AI book, which is incredible. You didn't go to university to learn AI. I imagine that you got online and you studied up, you read up, and you taught yourself a skill, published that skill. So we live in a time and in a country where there's really no excuse where you can't achieve your goals. The only thing that's stopping you is yourself.
And I think that it just keeps coming down to the same word. If you are curious enough, you will innovate. That's all this is asking the next question. What if I tried it like this? And you can't be worried about failing. When I was writing the book on AI, I knew I had done a lot of research. I know I've always been interested in technology and innovation. But when I wrote it, I was not thinking how many people are going to like this book. Will I get on the bestseller list? None of that crossed my mind. I just wanted to make it easier to understand for people who didn't quite understand what AI was. That was it. It was such a simple goal. But I had to become curious myself to understand, like, well, what is AI? Why do we need it? How does it help us? How could it make my life better and easier and help me work smarter? And when you start to answer those questions, that's when you start to innovate.
So you mentioned the word failure. And I just want to say in my household, that word doesn't exist. So my daughter, she's 5. I enrolled her in like the little kids jujitsu. And she goes in there and the little kids, they wrestle around. And one day she's crying because like after her little match, she lost and she's crying. And I asked her, I'm like, why are you crying? I lost, Daddy. I was like, what do you mean? I didn't win. I lost. The other girl beat me. And I said, well, why? What happened? And she said, well, she did this and I did that and I lost. I said, well, what would you do differently? Well, I would do this. I said, okay, well then you learned something new, didn't you? So you didn't lose, you learned. So never think of anything as losing. You're not a loser because you're here trying.
Yep.
If you're a loser, that means you're at home not trying. But by being here and putting yourself out there and trying, you're not a loser. You didn't win, but you learned something.
Yeah.
The only way we learn and get better is by not winning. But we win because we learn and get better.
Well, that's just
those are the
everything,
lessons,
right? There is no growth without learning the lesson first, right? We don't evolve as a human being without first learning. When people are angry because a relationship didn't go well or they had a health challenge, you needed that to happen to grow into the next version of who you are, because we don't get there without something happening, right? And that's physics. Something needs to happen, interrupt the pattern of a forward motion in order for, you to move to the next
improvement. Yeah. If you look at all the famous wealthy entrepreneurs, Walt Disney, Stephen King, I mean, they all failed. I think I read a story at Stephen King, his first book, everybody turned it down.
Yeah.
And now he's known as one of the greatest writers of all time, right? Um, not that failure is great because success is right around the corner.
I was listening to a podcast and the guest was Michael Bublé, who has a phenomenal voice. And he was turned down for 10 years. No one would take him on to do a record, an album, nothing, because they said he was too similar to Frank Sinatra and people only wanted to listen to Frank Sinatra. And he said by year 10, I grew enough courage to look at them and say, yes, but I'm alive. And he said that one line that I finally grew the courage to say, that's what got me my first record deal.
Did you watch the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary on Netflix?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
They told him you'll never make it as an actor. You'll never make it. You talk funny. You have a weird name, Schwarzenegger. Like you'll never make it. Becomes one of the greatest actors of all time. You'll never make it in Hollywood.
But isn't that the case with so many people? If you can turn off the noise, I'm fascinated by, for example, Arnold Schwarzenegger or Dwayne Johnson, The Rock.
Yes.
I'm fascinated by people who can have these multifaceted careers and you still know them for who they are and you can still know them for everything that they do, right? And I am sure that when The Rock wanted to go from wrestler to actor, people looked and said, you're crazy. And when he wanted to go from wrestler actor to buying a sports team, same thing. And then wrestler, actor, sports team, now alcohol. Now there's skin product he's selling. Just tune out the noise, because if you believe that you can keep moving forward because you have a belief that it's going to work, don't worry about what other people say. If you've done your homework and you know you have an audience and you know that there's a need, just do it. And don't worry about what's going to happen.
But I think to add to that, something that I've experienced personally is a lot of times we surround ourselves with the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, The Rock is trying to do these things and people tell him stuff. You surround yourself with people that are entrepreneurs and people that boost you up, you're more likely to succeed. So look at your network. Look at who you spend time with. Do you spend time with people that are boosting you up or that are commiserating with you and tearing others down?
Yeah, so true. Well, I think we have dove. I think we have a lot of topics that all encompass what innovation is. And I think
I've lost track of time.
It's because
it's so fun.
It's and this is what I love, is just having a conversation, right? When seeing where everyone is coming from and what their perspective is on topics. And I hope that anyone listening or watching this video, that you just embrace what you believe in. Because and I think that that's what we have in common. We just wanted to make an impact. We wanted to help people, and we continue to do so, right? You are coaching and you're coaching on social media and performance and high performers and so on, as do I, but more on the business aspect. I'm going to be unveiling something very fun at the end of the month that will change the way that coaching can be done and everything surrounding it.
I got a sneak peek and I got to say, wow, I'm going to sign up. I can't wait to see this rolled out. I've never seen anything like this before. And I'm on top of tech stuff. This is really, really cool.
I can't wait. But again, right. When I was thinking about doing this, I could have, there's two camps, right? It's let's just go for it and have fun and see where this goes. Or I could have said, but what if it doesn't work? What if no one's interested? What if it's too much? Because I have seen the negativity out there with people and the idea of AI and it's going to take over and all these things. And I could focus on that, or I can just focus on, but who could I help with it? Right. And that's the camp I'm just going to. Who can I help with it?
I love it.
The people over here eventually will move over here once they become comfortable with the idea.
And when you do it to help others, you only win.
Right. I agree. Rick, thank you so much. This has been super fun. Anyone who is watching, listening, you can find Rick, and I will put in the links at whether this is YouTube or whether you're watching this on social media, you're going to see Rick's link below. Follow him, Rick Guerrero, on LinkedIn, Instagram,
Facebook.
Yeah, all
those are the 3 in 1.
Exactly. And he is a person of interest. And the reason I say so is because he wants you to see who he is. He wants you to see all the different things that he's involved in, which is a lot. Such a great guy. And I'm so glad that we met, 8-9 years ago. And, here's to the future of innovation.
Thank you for having me.